Hello, my friends. Eric Feltus here, life coach, speaker, actor, and host of The Great Unbecoming. This is a show about stories of unlearning. What did you let go of in order to become the person you are today? And what did you gain and learn as well? This is a show about letting go of stories that no longer serve us and stepping into our own authenticity. It's about unbecoming what society says you should be and remembering who you are and who you are meant to be. So sit back, relax, and welcome to The Great Unbecoming. Hello, my friends. Eric Feltus here. Welcome to another episode of The Great Unbecoming. I'm so happy that you are here, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our new guest and my friend, who's another coach. But before we do that, I just want to remind you, if you are gay, bi, trans, identify as male, and you are struggling, if you are led to believe that you're not good, if you don't have a community, if you struggle with perfectionism or people pleasing or constantly worried about what other people think of you, if you have a hard time getting up in the morning, if you don't know what your purpose is, that's why I'm here. I've dedicated my life to helping gay, bi, trans people who identify as male to kind of dislodge and remove that shame from their lives, to live the lives that they want and not the lives that other people want for them. If this intrigues you, there's no pressure. I'm not a high pressure salesman. I'm here to help you, not to sell anything. So if you want to hear more about the program and see if and how I can help you, go ahead and apply for a discovery call. This is a free Zoom one-on-one where we'll get deep down into where you are, where you want to be, and I can answer any questions that you might have about that program. Click on the show notes, and you will see a link to apply for that call. You can also DM me on Instagram, Eric Feltus. Go to my website, Life Coaching by Feltus. You do you. I am here when you're ready. And now I'm so excited to introduce my guest, Rena Martine. Rena was a Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney for 14 years. God, I have so many badass women in my life, where she specialized in sex crimes, child abuse, and domestic violence cases. She continues to serve women today as an intimacy coach, educator, TEDx speaker, and author with a mission to help women love their bodies, experience deep intimacy, and have great sex shame-free. I love that she added shame-free at the end of that. So Rena, it's such an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for being here, my friend.
My pleasure, my friend.
How's your day so far?
So far so good.
You're busy.
Busy
I saw
when
your schedule.
yeah, and Wednesdays are hump day, which is always a fun day of the week in my line of work, but
Yeah.
that's typically the day when I do a lot of teaching, a lot of interviews. So yeah, it's a good day, friend, and I'm happy to spend part of it with you.
Well, so me too. And one thing that I love about coaching is that I'm just naturally surrounded by other people who are working on themselves and also helping others to work on themselves. Um, Sadly, we're not there, but I just went to another IAL that I just got back from. If you don't know what IAL is, it's Impact Accelerator Live. It's every 6 months. It's a part of High Impact Coaching, which is where Rena and I met each other. And what's so cool about this conference is there's other coaches, fitness coaches, sex and intimacy coaches, relationship coaches, wellness coaches. So no matter what you have going on in your life, you can, like, wherever you look, you can find someone that can help you with something. So we're there to better ourselves, but then we're around these other coaches that are inspiring us, and just we're all raising the consciousness of ourselves and those around us. And that's where Rena and I met. I want to say a year ago.
Yeah.
Something, I think
Has
it
it
was a
been
year
that
ago.
long?
Yeah, isn't
Yeah,
that crazy?
it is crazy. Yes, we met there a year ago,
In
and
San
I'll just
Diego.
echo what you said. There's a coach for that. I mean, literally anything you could possibly think of in your entire life that you might need, there is a freaking coach for that, and you don't have to figure it out alone.
Mm,
And also echoing that, there are a lot of coaches out there, but it's important to look for someone who's still working on themselves and
yeah.
still surrounding themselves and constantly learning and bringing in fresh ideas. And yes, that's how you and I met, because we were doing just that.
Mm-hmm. And also, like attracts like, and we're both pretty cool. I like to
Yes,
think.
that's true. That's true.
Now, I know that I do want to talk about your offer. Before we started recording, I lied to you. I actually want to hear more about, like, your work uh, at the Los Angeles County Deputy District as a deputy. I'm literally reading this off my screen. Deputy District. If I can't even say it and it's something you did, props to you. Talk to me about what you did before you were a sex and intimacy coach. It's so fascinating to me.
Sure. So, yes, I was a prosecutor with the Los Angeles County DA's office for 14 years. Spent about a decade of my career focusing on sex crimes, child abuse, and domestic violence cases. I'd say most of those were sex crimes cases. That's
Hmm.
why I wanted to be a DA. That's why I wanted to be a lawyer. And about a decade in, I realized that the system was broken, and I probably am not the first person to say that. But I was seeing this interesting paradox that would happen with juries in sex cases,
Hmm.
and and just in a nutshell, juries don't tend to believe victims and survivors when the perpetrator is somebody known to the victim or survivor, because
Hmm.
the reality is this, Eric, that the average person on a jury doesn't want to believe that every time they leave their child at home with a step parent that something bad's going to happen, that when they send their kid to a church camp something bad's going to happen, right? It
Hmm.
questions their own sense of safety in the world.
Hmm.
And so juries struggle with that. I reached my own breaking point when I realized that I could work my ass off and really fight for these victims and survivors, but that my hands were tied in a broken system.
Hmm.
So from there, I was like, you know what? I've done my 10 years, which is longer than a lot of people can commit to those types of cases, and started prosecuting other kinds of cases. I worked in a unit that prosecuted law enforcement who were breaking the law. So, officer involved shootings, any kind of on duty or off duty crime that cops, sheriffs, probation officers were committing.
Wow.
Very different, and I didn't find that to be totally satisfying either. I was like, okay, well, this is a paycheck.
Hmm.
And there was one day I was sitting with my partner after I'd transferred to that unit, and I said to him, I just don't know that this is for me. And he asked me, well, why do other people join this unit? Like, what does that look like for other people? So, well, most other people want to be in this unit because it's a stepping stone to upper management, or it's a stepping stone to become a judge.
Hmm.
And he said, well, do you want to do either of those things? And that question really changed my life, because I said, no, actually, I don't. And wait, actually, what do I want to do?
Hmm.
And it was literally in that moment while we were hanging out in my Silver Lake backyard at the time that I realized that my longest ever relationship, which was my career as a DA, that I had fallen out of love with it. And that perhaps there was something greater that I could fall in love with, and a way that I could help people on a more profound level.
Wow. You
Yeah.
know, I just realized earlier today I recorded another podcast episode with a woman who is a microdosing coach and a former lawyer as well. So it's like
Oh, yes.
there's something to be said about like finding your passion and like, is this what you really want to do?
Absolutely.
You know, I don't know if this is your story. So I want to project. I know it's my story. I know it's also Julie's story. That's the microdosing coach, but we both recognize that a lot of what we do as coaches now came from a place of either trauma or unhappiness, or our body saying, this isn't right. Something is not right for me.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I also know your story, but can you tell us a little bit about like what else was going on in your life before you transitioned into what you do? You know, and again, like for me, as a coach who helps gay men free themselves from shame, most of my men have experienced trauma and shame in the church. That's what my experience is. That's what I lacked. I'm giving people what I didn't have then. So I'm curious if that resonates with you in your own journey.
So much, so much. So I've kind of given you a glimpse into the chronology of what was going on
Yeah.
professionally for me.
Yeah.
But while that was happening, personally speaking, I was going through a lot.
Hmm.
I was married at the time, conventional white picket fence of monogamy, lots of couples game nights, and very little going on in the bedroom.
Hmm.
And me feeling like there was something wrong with me, that this life that everyone's supposed to want, not the not the bedroom part, but everything else on paper, successful husband, cute house, lots of friends, all these things. What was so wrong with me that I felt deeply dissatisfied and
Mm.
lacking even in all of that air quotes abundance?
Yeah.
And I went to a therapist and I begged her to fix me.
Mm.
Literally showed up and was like, I suck at monogamy and you have to help me figure this out.
Mm.
Right. I'm broken. Fix me. That's what shame is.
Mm.
I
Here's this
wasn't used.
box of
Yeah.
monogamy. Cram me into that box. Make sure
Yeah.
that that box works for me. Yeah.
Right. Square peg, round hole. Help me make it not so. And,
Mm.
I didn't use the word shame at the time because it's not a
Sure.
word that many of us walk around using because it sounds so yucky.
Yeah.
But really, that's what it is. Like, there's
Mm.
something wrong with me. Please fix me. And she then, fought me tooth and nail and convinced me that there was nothing to be fixed
Mm.
and that there was another path for me. And so I ended up dropping a huge bomb in my life and ended my marriage. And we had tried couples therapy. We had done other things, but ended my marriage and decided I'm going to design my life and my relationships to look however the hell I want them to look.
Period.
And yeah, boom, done. And I did that in my personal life. And then the pandemic hit in my professional life. And I was like, how can I implement what I've done personally to find greater meaning in my work again?
Mm.
And so that's really what I've done now as a coach and as somebody who is multi-passionate in reaching folks in a variety of ways and not just one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
And it's been the most rewarding work I've ever done.
There's something that I recognized that happens with a lot of us is like it's similar to saying, square peg round hole. It's like we have this idea of what our lives should be, and we try to contort our behaviors to fit that life, as opposed to finding the life that fits our behaviors. Which
Yes.
isn't to say that all behaviors are right. I'm not saying that, but I think that a lot of unhealthy behaviors are really just coping mechanisms preventing us from that are acting as temporary balms from the pain we're feeling from the resistance. There is suffering in the resistance of living the life we're supposed to live. And the more I talk to you, the more I see how universal this idea of coming out is. I always say that coming out is a universal experience of risking relationship for authenticity. When you choose your own authentic path, it doesn't make your life easy. I thought
Yeah.
coming out would make my life easy. It didn't make my life easy. It made my life authentic. And in doing so, my life falls into place because I first say yes to myself. And it starts in that way. Um, so I'm sure that wasn't an easy path. And thank God you had a sex positive therapist. I mean,
Thank God, because yeah.
did you even know that that's what you need? Like, did you even seek that out before?
No, and you know what's interesting? Because in case the listeners don't know this, I'm from LA. You're from LA too. Therapy is not, I mean, everyone pretty much has a therapist in LA. I had gone through about a dozen therapists in my adult life at different periods
Mm-hmm.
and had never found a great one, but I didn't realize I had never found a great one. And this particular therapist who I started going to, like, she changed my life. I am dedicating my book to her, like literally
Wow.
worship this woman. And I found her because a few female DAs who I knew at the time were going to her. And she wasn't someone who was advertised in the DA's office, but
Mm.
she kind of had this niche that became apparent to me of working with high performing successful women who were completely detached from who they were and from their emotions
Mm.
and who had some sort of trauma in their background. And I thought I had processed my trauma in conventional talk therapy before. It wasn't a
Mm.
big secret. I talked about it. But I did not seek her out as a sex positive therapist, and she does not put herself out there as one. She
Mm-hmm.
was just a therapist that came recommended to me, and
Wow.
for good reason. It turned out she knew my type,
Mm.
and I went in there, thinking I could run circles around her as I had done with most other therapists. But no, she called me on my shit in a very
Wow.
nice, kind way. But But yeah, she knew exactly what I needed, even though I had no idea what that was. And I kind of thought I knew what I needed, and she knew better.
I'd love for you to unpack what you needed. And I'd love for you to unpack what you needed through the lens of potential audience members, listeners that think that maybe they're living a life that's not aligned, that just doesn't feel right. Like we all know that feel like something just doesn't feel right. And you spend so much time trying to convince yourself that this is right, which is exhausting. Can you give us a little snippet of what you needed?
Yeah. So there were a few parts of it. One was this idea of loving all my parts. So there's a part of me that, yes, can be cold and emotionless because that's kind of who I needed to be to do my job as a DA.
Mm,
And there was also this part of me who liked to play practical jokes and who's like a total pain in the ass too,
mm,
because that's kind of how my family is and that's how we communicate love with one another. And sometimes my husband at the time would say things like, Rena, grow up, or like eye roll when I would do silly and ridiculous things. And she said to me, you have to love all of your parts because you can't
mm.
get rid of them. Even the parts you don't like, even the parts that other people tell you that you need to push down, you need to love all of them because they're all the parts that made you who you are today.
Yeah.
um, and then two fundamental things she said to me. One was, you're allowed to be happy.
Mm,
Like, so simple, but that, right? That I was allowed to be happy and define that however I wanted that to look. And if me being in this marriage, me choosing this life isn't truly what made me happy, then no one else was going to give that to me. I needed to give that to myself.
wow.
And this our big breaking point happened one night during a session, and she said to me, there's a scream buried deep inside of you, Rena, and it's dying to get out. And that hit so hard because I knew in that instant that she was 1,000% right,
Mm,
but I never had thought that I had something like that buried inside of me. And it was the next day that I went to my husband and said, I can't do this anymore. Was having somebody else see the potential, right? That not
mm,
only did I have a scream, but that it needed to go somewhere.
mm.
And so I would urge anyone who's listening, if you feel like, oh God, if I could let out this scream, whatever that scream looks like for you, this is what my life would look like. Listen to that because that's the real you in there.
Mm,
I do an exercise with my clients where I ask them, what would your life, what would their life look like if shame
yeah,
were not an option?
yeah.
And lean into that.
Mm. Ask that question again, just in case we didn't hear it, because that was such a
Yeah.
good question.
Yeah. What would your life look like if shame weren't an option?
Mm. How would you treat yourself? Who would you be if that was if any of your shame-filled thoughts just didn't exist? Who would you be?
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, and I've gotten such cool responses. Like, I'd quit my job, I'd wear a bikini to the beach, I'd speak up for myself in my relationship. I mean, and you see how much we are creating these boxes
Mm,
that we're in. And
mm,
we think it's other people doing it to us, but really it's our own internal shame and shoulds
mm-hmm.
that are the architects of those boxes that we're living in.
So well said. You were talking about telling your then husband this isn't working out, and I remembered that beautiful photo that you posted from your wedding day,
Uh-huh.
and I pulled it up. Is it okay if I read what you wrote?
Yes, please.
Okay, so there's picture from black and white picture, beautiful, of Rena on our wedding day. She goes, I came across this shot from my wedding day 7 years ago. I didn't show up that day, planning on getting divorced within a few years. It got me thinking about how, most of the time, we make major life decisions with the best intentions. But the most valuable lessons I've learned is this: you're allowed to fall out of love with what you thought you wanted. You have permission to change your mind. We only get to ride this wild adventure we call life once. We owe it to ourselves to make the most of it. If you were to die tomorrow, would you feel like you were living the life you want to live? It's never too late to make a change, to pursue your passions, to chase your dreams. So here's your reminder to take a step back and evaluate your life. Are you happy with where you're at? If not, what changes can you make to get there? Make every day count. XO Rena. I love that.
Oh,
And for anyone listening, this is me playing devil's advocate. Of course, you're not a divorce coach. You're not advocating for divorce. And I know that. Can you talk about what that was like for you, knowing that that was the option versus any other option for you at that point?
um, well, that wasn't the first option for me.
Mm,
We had done all the things, right? I
mm-hmm.
was listening to podcasts, I was reading books, we had gone to couples retreats. Um, I was going through therapy. And so this wasn't from zero to divorce
Of
in
course.
60 seconds, right?
Yeah. By the
But
way, y'all, this
knowing
is
that,
probably a 30 to 40-minute podcast. We can't get all of Rena's life in 30 to 40 minutes, but I hope you don't mind me asking this question because I think it's important to recognize
not
you do everything you can. But
not
apologies,
at
continue.
all.
Yeah.
Well, and here was the thing, Eric. I realized if I had actually done the work I was so desperately trying to catch up on during this period,
Mm,
if I had done that work before I met my then husband,
yep.
I would never have gotten in a relationship with him to begin with.
Yep.
And so part of what I do now is okay, can I help unpartnered women save themselves from getting into relationships that aren't the best ones for them? Not to say that
Mm,
all relationships that end are failures, because I don't believe that.
exactly. Exactly.
But can I save them? Can I get them into better relationships?
Mm,
Can I help them foster deeper connection in the relationships they're already in? And can I get them to a place where if they realize that their relationship is not serving them, that they can give themselves permission to change their minds and feel worthy of pursuing more happiness, purpose, and meaning in their lives?
mm. I love that. Yeah, we live in such a purity culture where it's like, and I'll tell you my own personally, I came out of the gay closet when I was 25. I always say this. I came out of the gay closet when I was 25. I did not come out of the sex purity culture for years later. I found myself, and I dated wonderful men, don't get me wrong, but I found myself always saying things like, oh, I'm just better in a relationship. Oh, I'm just better in a relationship. And it's like, are you better in a relationship or are you just afraid to be alone? And I've recognized that
Mm.
sex outside of a relationship created an immense amount of shame. And I always talk to my clients, I always help my clients to differentiate the voice of God, higher power, universe, genius, passion from the voice of shame. The voice telling you that you are not good. That's not God saying you need to be in a relationship to be good. There's maybe something that's not right about the sex that you are having. Maybe you didn't use your words. Maybe you're using sex as a way of escaping or numbing. I mean, there's a million different reasons you could be feeling that shame, but it's not because you need to be in a relationship, because you just do better in a relationship. I mean, how many people do you know that are just bounced from relationship to relationship because they think they just can't be alone? They're just not good single. Well, have
Yeah.
you allowed yourself to fall in love with yourself? Can you say anything about that, either your own life or the lives of any of your clients, of like what the process is like falling in love with yourself after you know what you can't unknow about who you are?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I actually my newsletter talked a little bit about this today. That really this concept of self love, because we all hear that term being thrown around a lot, like self care, self love, and I didn't realize what that meant until I had dropped this bomb in my life, decided to do things differently. And really, self love is the feeling of falling in love with yourself. So think about what it feels like to fall in love with another human,
Mm,
right? You enjoy their company. You put care and attention and detail into the time that you spend together. And this all hit me on the first solo trip I ever took. So I decided to fly to Copenhagen on my own, cashed in some airline miles that I've been hoarding, bought myself business class tickets because I'm worth it and I deserve it with those miles,
Mhm.
and took myself on this trip where I deliberately chose to be alone. And I had plenty of friends who were like, I might crash your trip. I was like, girl, don't you even fucking think
You're
about
like,
it.
"No."
No. And I was on the train one day, heading from downtown Copenhagen out to the outskirts of the city where there's this beautiful art museum called the Louisiana Museum. And I had my headphones on. I was listening to music, just looking out the train window, and I started ugly crying, Eric,
Mm,
because I realized then, like, I love myself. I actually like being around me. I
mm,
don't need somebody to mirror that back to me. I don't want somebody to come in and infringe on the time I have with myself, which
mm,
is why I did not want a relationship at that time. I was seeing a few people, but I made it very clear I am not getting on that relationship escalator with you. So, what I tell folks, okay, how do I start doing this? I don't care whether you're single or you've been married for 50 years. Take yourself out on a date.
mm,
Like, and not just go do something on your own. Take yourself out on the kind of date that someone who loves you, that you'd want them to take you out on.
yeah.
And this doesn't have to be super expensive. You don't have to to get on a flight and fly solo. Although I highly recommend solo travel for self
Traveling
discovery.
alone is the best.
Right?
Yeah, it really
Right?
is. Mhm.
But yeah, that's like, court yourself.
Mm.
Yes, sometimes you're going to be annoyed with yourself because we sometimes get annoyed by the people we love, but reestablish a relationship with yourself. This sounds so cheesy. I'm thinking this as it's coming out of my mouth,
It's very eat, pray,
but
love of you.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But it is yes, yes.
But
Okay.
it's true. I mean, there's
It
nothing
is.
wrong with that. It is what it is. You see things through the different lens. You're not doing things for other people. You're doing things for yourself. And it's quiet. So you ask yourself, do I like this?
Yeah. It's funny,
And
my
the,
sister
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I
No, I
was
was
gonna
going
say
to say my
there's
sister
let's just talk at the same time. No, go. You go.
My sister texted me earlier because she's on a work trip and she's traveling alone. Normally, her colleagues will say like, "Hey, dinner plans," or "We have an event tonight." She's like, "What do I do? I'm traveling by myself." And I said, "Go to a bar or go to a restaurant, sit at the bar, and bring a book with you."
Hmm.
And if you cannot take yourself out on a big, elaborate date, do that. Go to a restaurant, grab a stool at the bar. You don't need a reservation. Bring a book with you and see what happens. Put your phone aside and use that as your jumping off point.
And scary, and it's scary. But anything that you try for the first time is scary. Discomfort is data that you're growing, and discomfort is necessary for you to grow. So if you want to
Yeah.
grow in love with yourself, this apartment that I'm in now is the embodiment of my own self-love. I moved into this apartment after I had found out that my boyfriend was unfaithful and we were living together and we broke up, and I was someone I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. I was heartbroken. I mean, I was devastated. And I thought I don't want to live alone. I never lived alone before. And I stepped into this apartment finally, I was being very stubborn, but I stepped into this apartment and I just started crying because I just knew that this was my next home. I've been here a
Yeah.
little over 2 years, and this is the location that I fell in love with myself because it's the first time in my life that multiple nights in a row I would just be alone. And I love being alone now. I needed that experience. I needed my ex in my life in order for me to recognize that we accept the love we think we deserve.
Mhm.
So if you don't fully love yourself, it's not possible. The love others give you is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. You can't receive more love. I don't feel you can because you don't think you're worthy of it. You have to fall deeper in love with yourself before others can love you. Do you agree with that? What do you think?
I do agree with that fundamentally, that
Mm-hmm.
we can't expect other people to have the missing ingredients that we need to make the cake. We can
Yeah.
expect people to put, a little bit of icing and some sprinkles on top.
Yeah.
But I do think that our relationships, that there is this myth that you need to be fully healed in order
Thank you.
to date, which
Sure.
I I don't think any of us are ever fully healed, Eric. That's a
Sure.
myth.
Sure.
That's that's some kind of like perfectionist propaganda, right? Like
Mm.
I don't want to be fully healed. I always want to keep working on myself
Mhm.
because life
Mhm.
would be pretty boring if I had all my shit figured out.
Mm.
But this idea, though, that I'll quote Dan Savage here, that you're in good enough working order
Yeah.
to show up. But I've learned a lot about myself from the healthy relationships I've had, and they've helped me grow. But again,
Mm.
I've got all those ingredients to make the cake. I got the eggs, I got the flour, I got the sugar, I got the butter. So I already had those there, and they were just like helping me put a little icing on the top, helping me give it a little bit of pizzazz with some sprinkles. But so, yes, you can grow, but you got to do so much work yourself first.
I think I agree, and I think I'll say this: I will never go on a second date with anyone ever again who never asks me a single question on the first date. I made that mistake
Mm,
before. I'm sitting across from someone who I was in a long relationship with, and they never asked me one question the entire time. The whole time I'm thinking, I hope they like me. I hope they like me. Do they like me? Do they like me? Do they like me? Now on a date, I'll let them ask me questions. I'll ask them questions, and I'll think, do I like them? How am I feeling right
right.
now? How do I feel when I walk away from them? I think that is the fundamental difference. Do I feel good and expanded when I walk away from them? Do I feel confident? Do I feel good about myself? Do I feel sexy? Do I feel beautiful? Do I feel good with this person and when I walk away from them? And if I don't know if that's necessarily the right person for me. Maybe it's a fluke, maybe I'll go on a second date depending, but I want to ask the questions, do I like this person? I'm worthy of that. How
Yes.
has your life changed? How have your relationships changed romantically, sexually, otherwise, even platonically after your divorce, after you started working on yourself?
I am much more vulnerable with everyone in my life, in my platonic friendships, with my family, with colleagues, and I'm also a hell of a lot better at setting boundaries too. When
Hmm.
it comes to romantically, I am partnered with somebody who I've been with for 4.5 years now, and
Hmm.
it's the most loving relationship that I've ever been in, the most healthy, nurturing, the kind of relationship that I probably would have like made a like gag noise about, because I would have been like, yeah, that's not real. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But that was my own limiting beliefs, right?
Hmm.
And about myself at the time that would have led me to jump to that conclusion. But I'm in a super awesome relationship. We are ethically non-monogamous, but he is my person. He is my primary partner, and we choose not to live together. So we live right around the corner from each other. We don't spend every day together because I'm like you, Eric. I love my solo time. He loves his solo time too, and we work, and it's so peaceful yet exciting and invigorating too.
Hmm.
Um, we have so much novelty, so we prioritize novelty, but we also feel very safe in the relationship.
Safety, man, safety is so important. Um, Not spending any more time wondering what they're doing or if I can trust them or what's going on behind my back. Can you talk a little bit about ethical non monogamy, what this means? I know it's different for everyone. Whatever you're
Yeah.
comfortable sharing, what does it mean to you and how does that work for you?
Sure. So, ethical non monogamy, we have the umbrella term, and there's so many different ways to practice it under that umbrella. There's polyamory, which a lot of people may have heard of. There's swinging, there's monogamish, there's open. So, the way it looks in our relationship today, because if you want to practice ethical non monogamy, you have to communicate all the time, and you're
Mm,
constantly reevaluating whether this current configuration still works.
yeah.
So, the way we are today, which is how it's been for a while, is we don't have other relationships. So we don't identify as being polyamorous. If he's on a trip or I'm on a trip and something happens to happen with someone else, so long as we're both safe about it, and so long as this isn't the seeds of a relationship, if this is just kind of like a one time thing, they're open and honest with the other person they're engaging with, that's not the end of our relationship and it's not the end of the world. He would prefer not to know if that happens. And I would prefer not to know too. Um, and then we will date women together sometimes. I will date women separately. That is the one exception to the you can't forge relationships and I don't want to know about it, because I am bisexual. So he's like, cool, do you, boo? And so I'm given that latitude there.
Hmm.
And that's what our current arrangement looks like.
Now, I know that there's someone listening that's going, I could never do that. I would be too jealous. To which my first response
Yeah.
is, well, 52% of marriages end in divorce, oftentimes because of jealousy and insecurity. So I'm not sure that opening or closing a relationship is going to save your relationship, period. But uh, talk to me about jealousy, how that comes into play, how you process that, because I assume you're a human. And I assume that you have all human emotions. So, what is that like, or what has that been like for you?
Yeah, jealousy is is interesting. I was just I had to make some edits to my book to really flesh jealousy out a little bit more, so it's kind of been top of mind for me. But jealousy is actually not an emotion itself. It's a thought that we attach to emotions like anger, sadness,
Mm,
resentment.
mhm,
So we get angry, resentful, sad, pissed off because of something that we're observing. And then it's up to us to then decide, oh shit, is that jealousy? Is what I'm feeling jealousy there? So jealousy is this idea that there's a rival, that someone else is trying to take time, love, or affection from you and from your relationship.
mm,
Rates of jealousy aren't any higher in
mm,
non-monogamous relationships than monogamous ones, period.
mhm,
Right. And the thing is, I couples cheat all the time. Like there's a wide variation in the numbers that have been reported because it's hard to measure how often people are cheating. But that's unethical non-monogamy. So that's already happening. Monogamy isn't preventing us from cheating. So if we bring things above board, I trust my partner that if I've given him the leeway to have like a one-off thing while he's traveling on vacation, that he's going to stick with that.
mm,
And so as a result, my jealousy doesn't kick in as often as it would if I were, say, in a monogamous relationship, because
mm,
we have ways to let off that pressure valve. And
mhm,
also we're really good about talking about, hey, okay, what can we do to bring some excitement and novelty into the bedroom, us two? I'm fortunate that I get new toys sent to me all the time because of what I do for work. So we get to try that.
mm.
We go to play parties. Again, we will occasionally date together. So we're wired to crave novelty. And if you don't make it a priority in your relationship itself, opportunities outside of the relationship are going to tug at your attention.
Mm.
So when it comes to jealousy, it's no higher in non-monogamous relationships, but we tend to process it better because there's so much communication that has to happen.
Well, and as Brene Brown says, shame hates to have words wrapped around it. So I think that we have that discomfort of, I feel icky and uncomfortable that you did something with someone else, and from a scarcity point of view, they took something from me. I'm going to attach the story to it that they're better than me, that it must have been better, that they're going to leave me now, that the other person is the enemy to be hated. I've done that. Um,
Yeah.
and then we don't talk about it, and it festers and grows like cancer. And is there anything wrong, Rena, with saying, hey, I feel really uncomfortable right now. Can we unpack it? Is there anything wrong with saying that in a
No,
relationship?
that is the best. And if you need a script when it comes to jealousy, what I say is identify what the thing was that made you feel jealous. Hey, it kind of made me feel sad, right? Identify the emotion. Kind of
Mm,
made me feel sad when I saw you talking to that woman at the bar, because and when you didn't introduce me, because it made me feel like you were acting like you were single.
mm,
And the story I'm telling myself
mm-hmm,
is
mm-hmm,
that you are embarrassed to have me on your arm. So
mm,
that's kind of your framework.
mm-hmm,
This is how I felt. The thing made me feel this. Um, and the story I'm telling myself is this.
mm,
And you can really use that as the springboard for so many things, not just jealousy,
uh-huh.
right?
I
But
love
think of it
that.
this way. We can become jealous of things that aren't even people. If your partner takes up rock climbing and like they want to spend all their weekend rock climbing instead of hanging out with you, you
Must be
can be
because
jealous
I'm
of
not
rock
enough.
climbing.
It must be because I'm boring. It must be, yeah,
Boring,
yeah.
right? This is the story I'm telling myself is, wow, you'd rather hang out with a bunch of rocks than hang out with me. I must be so boring. And then it could give the partner an opportunity to say something like, "Oh my gosh, I can see how you might feel that way. It is not that you're boring. I just took up this new hobby and I know if I don't if I lose my traction that I may not ever improve at it, but I
Mm.
see what you're saying. Let's come up with a way to figure out how to compromise on our time."
Mm. I think it's
Easy.
important to note that this comes from fear. I saw you talking to the other woman at the bar. You didn't introduce me. That made me feel scared. As
Yeah.
irrational as it might sound, it made me feel scared. And here's the entire novel in the last 5 minutes that I've told myself, and it must be true because
Right.
I'm telling myself. It's so funny how we take 2 seconds to Google anything, or now use Chat GPT to figure anything out, and yet we constantly believe the stories that we're telling ourselves in our head. Why?
Yes, yes. Well, because it's our annoying roommate who won't shut the hell up.
Exactly,
That's our thoughts.
exactly. Um, you have worked with so many women, and you also work with some of my guys. Can you just give a real quick snippet as to like what you've done with some of my guys before? So, y'all, I have the 10-week program. You've heard about it. I also have a shame-free ongoing leadership program where I always say that the 10-week program teaches you how to swim. The leadership program teaches you how to be an Olympic athlete. And I always bring in other coaches. I don't know everything, so I bring in a financial advisor. I bring in a fitness coach. I bring in a sex and intimacy coach. So, what are some of the offerings? Do you mind talking about some of the things you've done with my guys? Because I think it's so cool.
Yeah, I don't mind at all. So you had me come in and teach an ethical non-monogamy masterclass. That was kind of the first or the only big group thing I've done. And then
I want
for
to
the
pause on that because I want to talk about
yeah,
why we did that. Not all of my guys want to be non-monogamous. Some people want to be monogamous. If you're listening to this and you think, yeah, actually, this has shown me that what I really want is monogamy. That's okay. That's happened to some of my guys. But one reason why I think it was so helpful, Rena, is because these guys want to be leaders in the queer community, and so many people in the queer community are in open or monogamous relationships, and it's so beneficial to have a more loving spirit, a more open mind to understand how their fellow brothers and beyond are interacting with others in relationships. So if it's not for them,
yes.
it's good to just know that these people are out there and to treat that with love instead of fear and judgment. So thank you for that. It was so informative.
You're so right. And yeah, ethical non-monogamy is most prevalent amongst the gay male communities. So even if you're not practicing it, there's no way that you can lead or be an effective ally if you don't at least understand what that looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Even if it's not for you, understand it. Yeah. Great.
Don't yuck anyone's yum. So I've done
Mm-hmm.
that. I also, with your leadership clients, they have an opportunity to book one of two different kinds of sessions with me. One
Mm-hmm.
is a body exploration session where I guide them through some self guided touch with our cameras off,
Mm-hmm.
where they get curious about what type of sensation, pressure, and touch feels good on their bodies because very few of us have ever taken the time to do that. And so it's no wonder that partners will touch us in a way we don't want to be touched because we don't know how to articulate that.
And then to use your words, be like, oh, actually, could you not touch me there? Like, I don't know about you, but
Right.
I have been in sexual situations where I'm like, oh, they're kissing my neck. I don't like that, but they must like it, so I'm just gonna let them do it. No, it's your body. Say, hey, please don't touch me there, and that's okay. That's body. That's
E-
your body. Period.
Exactly. And so, they get to practice really articulating to me a woman who they're never going to be romantically involved with, right?
Right, right.
Here's what I like. And they get to, at the end of the process, unpack that with me. So that's
Mm,
one thing I do with them. We also do a sexual fantasy session where I help them explore whether they have any kinks, what they're fantasizing about. And then from there, okay, are you getting those needs met?
mm,
And maybe what are some dating apps that you could consider if you want to dive into this more?
yeah.
What's some porn? What are some toys that you and your boyfriend can use together? So it really depends on where they're at because no two people are alike, but
Hmm.
giving them guidance how to safely start indulging their fantasies because the research tells us that couples who enact their fantasies show the highest rates of relationship satisfaction.
And I want to
So,
also say, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not into BDSM. I don't have any kinks. Okay, that's you. It's possible, but also one thing that Rena will help you find in this through the leadership program with this one-on-one is putting words to the different things that are out there. You might be into things that you don't even know. So she can help you even figure that out in the first place. It's so fascinating. You and I have talked about that in my own life, and it's so eye-opening to be able to put words to what turns you on can remove and alleviate so much shame. Because then, for one, this is just one example, instead of telling yourself the story, oh, so and so must just not be into me. Well, maybe they just don't have the same sexual connection that you do. Maybe they're just not into the same thing sexually as you do. It has nothing to do with you. It takes the onus and the shame off of you. Again, putting words to who you are and what you like and what you don't like and what you're afraid of and what brings you joy. I mean, the possibilities for your life, sexual and otherwise, are endless. So I'm so grateful that you've helped some of my clients in that way.
oh, I love your clients. They're such a good group of men.
Yeah, they
I think
really
I've
are.
texted you so many
You
times
have.
being like, I
Yeah.
just met with so and so, and isn't he just lovely and wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
No, that's y'all. If
I
you're listening, you're a client. That's true. She really does. She
I
messages me
do.
those things. It's great, and I love hearing. I'm proud. I'm so proud of what we do, and I'm so proud of the guys I have. I just seeing them grow and be vulnerable with me, and it also helps me. I mean, it's not easy. There's no instruction manual for when you come out of the closet for how to be a gay man, and so I, like so many before me, have used sex as a transaction. If this, then that. If I engage this way, then I will have connection. You don't say those words, but you feel that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will say, amongst working on myself and therapy and my own coach and so many other things, one thing I love about being a coach is it allows me to be so vulnerable and intimate with men in a deep way that doesn't involve sex. To really get to know people and be a part of their journey has been such a gift. I'm so
Yes.
glad that you're a part of it.
Yeah, I'm grateful to know you and so thrilled that you're doing the same shame-free work in your community and
Yeah.
with your population that I'm doing in mine.
Exactly. I mean, it's so, isn't it funny how our work is so intertwined and so similar
It
in so
really
many ways?
is.
Yeah. Rena, it's been such a joy. It always is. How can people reach out to you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, so you can head on over to my website, which is renamartine.com. You can contact me through there, set up a consultation if coaching looks good to you, or drop me a DM on Instagram _Rena.Martine_.
And those links will also be in the show notes, along with an application to get that free discovery call, like we talked about. Rena, thank you so much. Such a joy. I love you so much.
Love you too, friend.
Mwah.